How exactly does one go from shooting YouTube videos during the day to dissolving 3 innocent student bodies in acid at night? Well, let us tell you. This is the tragic story of Christian Palma Gutierrez and the cartel he worked for. The Cartel. 7:30 p.m., December 2nd, 2018. 2 hand grenades were thrown into the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara, breaking down the walls of the building. No one was in the building at the time because the general office was closed, but it was a warning sent to the U.S. government and DEA from one of the most brutal Mexican cartels at the moment. That cartel is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG. The CJNG is a cartel that Christian Palma Gutierrez secretly worked for, and they're the ones whom, he says, ordered him to do the evil things he did to those innocent students. To understand why they gave that order, we need to first hop on our imaginary time-traveling vehicle and go back to a time when their wave of violence on innocent Mexicans first began. The CJNG was a subgroup of the Milenio Cartel, which in turn was a subgroup of El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel. Now, after the arrest of the Milenio cartel's leaders, there was no one to take up the mantle and take charge of this cartel. This led to the Milenio cartel breaking up into a smaller fraction, the CJNG. Now, once the CJNG was formed, a man named Nemesio Oseguera, aka El Mencho, decided to lead this small group of drug dealers. And just like El Chapo, El Mencho had a very strong will to be at the top of the cocaine market. There was only one way to do it: violence. June 2009, an abandoned truck was found in a residential neighborhood in Cancun, Quintana Roo, Mexico. Inside this truck were the corpses of 3 men, along with a message that read in English:
"We are the new group Mata Zetas, and we're against kidnapping and extortion, and we'll fight them in all states for a cleaner Mexico. Los Mata Zetas."
This was the first ever mass killing by the cartel. And it is funny how they said they were against kidnapping, but 9 years later, they kidnapped and killed 3 students. The 3 students I mentioned earlier. But that's not even the point right now. The point here is they needed to enact violence to get what they wanted. El Chapo and his men were playing a dirty game of chess against their allies in the Mexican government. There were rumors of El Chapo's disloyalty to his allies, and of him also striking a deal with the Mexican government to turn him over while he and his cartel members were given immunity. This made El Mencho very angry. He gathered like-minded drug lords, a battalion of sicarios, and very powerful ammunition to enact more violence and brutality than any cartel had ever done. So where does Christian Palma Gutierrez come in? Well, we're about to find out. September 25th, 2011. At around 5 p.m., about 3 vehicles blocked a major avenue in Boca del Rio, Mexico. This obviously stopped the traffic, and once that happened, a group of armed men came down from these vehicles and opened the door of 2 trucks. Then they began pulling out the dead bodies of different men. While they were doing that, another group of armed men pointed their guns at frightened drivers on the highway. Once they were done dropping the bodies, they entered back into their vehicle and drove off. Now, when Mexican authorities got to the scene, they found another letter that was left behind. This one read,
"No more extortions, no more killings of innocent people. Zetas in the state of Veracruz and politicians helping them. This is going to happen to you, or we can shoot you as we did those before. People of Veracruz, don't allow yourselves to be extorted. Don't pay for protection. If you do, it's because you want to. This is the only thing these people can do. This is going to happen to all those Zeta fucks who continue operating in Veracruz. This territory has a new proprietor."
Now obviously that was a letter directed to Los Zetas, and it was initially believed that all 35 men were members of the Zetas. But on further investigation, only 6 were actual Zeta members. They killed 29 people on the mere suspicion that they were cartel members. Like, if that doesn't make you scared, I don't know what will. The crazy part is, the story gets worse from here. October 6th, 2011, 36 bodies were found in 3 different houses in the Veracruz neighborhood. 20 were found in the same building, while the rest were found in the other two houses. By the end of 2011, the CJNG had killed more than 300 Mexicans in the state of Veracruz, with only a tiny fraction of that number being cartel members. They don't care to differentiate who is and is not a member. As long as you're in their territory, they'd kill without thinking twice. And that's probably why those students made the worst mistake of their lives by entering their territory. But let's rewind a bit. If the CJNG really killed so many people, what exactly happened to their bodies? Well, apart from the ones they used to pass their messages across, they cooked the rest in acid. And the man who helped them cook this pile of human flesh is Christian Palma Gutierrez. So who exactly is he? Christian Palma Gutierrez. Christian, going by the stage name QBA, was quite famous for his YouTube and Facebook channels. He had over 100,000 YouTube subscribers with millions of video views, while his two Facebook pages had a combined following of over 140,000. However, behind the scenes, Christian, or should I say QBA, was the cook for the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Once the cartel sicarios made a hit and wanted a body to disappear, they would hand that to QBA, who'd chop it into smaller parts and then dissolve the chopped pieces into sulfuric acid. The process takes about 2 to 3 hours because they need to get those bones liquefied. A very bad stench usually oozes as a result of the mixture, which many people say smells like death itself. But once the body is dissolved, QBA goes to dispose of it in faraway sewage where no one would go looking. March 19, 2018, the 3 students, identified as Javier Salamon Aceves Gastelum, Jesus Daniel Diaz, and Marco Avalos, were filming in a ranch located in Tonalá, in western Jalisco state. The ranch was supervised by members of the CJNG, as they waited to ambush rival gang members who reportedly chilled together at that particular spot. Those students, who were just filming a school project, got approached by CJNG members. And after asking a few questions, the CJNG mistook them as their rivals from Nueva Plaza cartel and kidnapped them. They then went to a safe hideout in the outskirts of town, tied them up, and began questioning them again. One of the students, Gastelum, was the one being asked the most questions. When he didn't provide the answer they were looking for, the CJNG gang members struck him with blows, kicks, and different violent weapons. This went on for hours and hours until that poor boy was killed. The intention was not necessarily to kill him, but he had taken so many hits to the head and body that he suffered a lot of internal bleeding. There was no way he was going to survive. Now, as for the other 2, they were witnesses to that crime, and the CJNG wouldn't afford to let him go. So they were also killed in this hideout. Later in the evening that day, QBA was called to come pick up the bodies for cooking, which he did. But after it was done, the Mexican authorities traced the crime back to him, and he was arrested a few days later. QBA was arrested and charged with aggravated kidnapping. Then other human parts identical to the 3 students were found at QBA's disposal site. He couldn't deny the fact that he had anything to do with it, so he confessed to the crime. He told the authorities how he's been the man cooking dead human body parts in acid for the cartel over a period of time. He alleged that he was paid 3,000 pesos a week to do this, which sums up to $159. Is that amount really worth the job? Hold up, before you answer that, you need to know that QBA wasn't so innocent himself. His music videos always painted a picture of street life in Mexico. I'm talking about drugs, guns, poverty, and just about any violent thing you can think of. While some may argue it is art, it really wasn't. Let us explain. QBA was trying to send a message with his music videos, and for videos shot in the woods and ghetto, it looked very professional. In one of his shots, in what looked like a cemetery, he rapped about his own death. He said, and I quote,
If tomorrow I'm not here, I want to tell you how much I regret all I did, all that I said. Mom, Dad, forgive me. I couldn't escape the darkness.
In other videos, he'd show his friends riding off in flashy cars or showing off their fancy chains. And the truth is, if you heard this guy sing before, you'd know he actually did have a talent. He once performed at a music festival at the border outpost of Tijuana on April 29, 2018. He absolutely had talent, but regardless of how talented he was, There was no excuse for being involved in cooking human body parts for the CJNG. After the death of those 3 students, the people of Mexico had had enough of the cartel war shenanigans going on. More than 12,000 people took to the streets with signs that read,
Not one war, we want peace.
and those signs say it all. It's not about the 3 students, or how a young talented boy like Christian Palma Gutierrez would probably waste all that talent locked up behind bars. It's about the fact that the Mexican cartels have so much power within their country, no one's safe. In the same year those students were killed, Mexico recorded more than 24,000 homicides, with the CJNG's territory recording more than 1,000 deaths alone. That's a lot of people dying due to a Mexican drug war, and it doesn't even seem like these cartels could be stopped. To put that into context, the Sinaloa cartel still operates as strong as ever, despite the leader of the cartel, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, serving multiple life sentences at the toughest prison in the US, the ADX Florence. And also on top of the fact that his wife and son have also been indicted on charges related to drug trafficking. As for the CJNG, El Mencho's wife and her 2 sons have also been arrested and indicted on charges relating to the cartel. Yet, reports came out that the cartel has gotten so strong, they're advancing into southern regions of Mexico such as Chiapas near the Guatemalan border. And although there are rumors of El Mencho being dead, it doesn't change anything because if he's gone, someone else would just pop out and lead that criminal organization on another horrifying reign of violence in Mexico. So, the question is, when will it ever end? According to one of Gutierrez's close friends, he said, and I quote,
What would have been his destiny if luck had placed him elsewhere? I'm sure that his talent would have brought him very far. He sings well, and it's clear that his videos tell a story, like the stories told by those that study film. Maybe other circumstances would have made him a happy man, because precisely that, the unhappiness, the bitterness of a cancelled future, a life in a hell, of which there's no option but to kill or die. A life in a hell, of which there's no option but to kill or die.